This week was something else. We just saw the stock market pretty much tear up its own history book. You had these huge market-moving news events that went head-to-head with decades of established patterns, and wow, the results were not what anyone expected.
So let's just start with the central puzzle here, the real head-scratcher. What on earth happens when September, which is historically the absolute worst month for stocks, suddenly pulls a fantastic week out of its hat? It's a total paradox, and digging into it tells us so much about what really drives the market day to day.
All right, so to really get why last week was so wild, we first have to talk about this thing called the September effect. We need to understand the myth, or, maybe the long-standing reality, that everyone was expecting the market to follow. So what is the September effect exactly? Well, it's this weird, well-documented thing in the market. For decades, the data has shown that stock returns in September are, on average, just weaker than any other month. It's a trend that investors have learned to expect, and honestly, a lot of them dread it. And listen, this is not just some gut feeling people have. It's backed by some serious data. I mean, look at the S&P 500 in the US. It has an average decline of 1.2% in September, and that's going all the way back to 1928. It's a similar story in India, where the Nifty 50 has been down in 6 of the last 10 Septembers. Historically speaking, it's just a rough month. So why? Why does this happen? Well, there are a few classic theories. You've got the big institutional investors coming back from summer break and reshuffling their portfolios. Traders are back from vacation, taking a hard look at their books. And then you have mutual funds selling off their losing stocks to manage their taxes. It's kind of this perfect storm of factors that just tends to push the market down. But right when the market was supposed to be settling into its typical September funk, a whole series of massive headlines just slammed into the news cycle. And these shockwaves, they completely changed the story. Okay, first up, the big one. The US Federal Reserve did something nobody saw coming. They cut the benchmark interest rate by 25 basis points. This was the first cut in 9 months, and it was a huge signal that the Fed was ready to make money cheaper to borrow to help the economy. And if there's one thing markets love, it's easy money. Then, over in the tech world, an absolute bombshell. The AI king, NVIDIA, announced it was making a massive $5 billion investment in its rival, Intel. This move sent Intel's stock through the roof, up over 30%, and just supercharged the entire chip sector with this fresh wave of AI optimism. And finally, on the world stage, some really good news. After months and months of tension, the US and China finally struck a deal to keep TikTok running in the States. This took a huge weight off the market's shoulders, easing those trade tensions that had been hanging over everything. So, this is where it gets so fascinating. On one side, you have this deep-rooted historical pattern of a weak September. And on the other, you have this sudden barrage of incredibly positive, real-time news. It was a straight-up battle between the historical pattern and what was happening right now. And the outcome? A complete and total reversal. While history was screaming, expect losses, the reality of the week delivered strong, positive returns basically everywhere you looked. The headlines didn't just nudge the trend, they completely steamrolled it. I mean, just get a load of these numbers. The small cap index, the IWM, just rocketed up 2.75%. The Dow Jones climbed over 0.8%, and even India's Nifty 50 finished the week in the green. This wasn't a small fluke. This was a loud and clear message that the September effect was, for this week anyway, canceled. So what was really going on here? If we look under the hood and see which specific parts of the market did the best, we can start to figure out why it decided to defy its own history. Over in India, the rally was really led by what we call cyclical sectors. The ones that do really well when the economy is looking strong. The auto index jumped a massive 2.8%. Realty and metals were right behind, which tells you there was real confidence in economic growth. And the reasons why are pretty clear. Everyone's getting optimistic about the upcoming festive season, so car sales are looking up. The housing boom is still going strong, helping out real estate. And metals got a nice little boost from some good economic data out of China. It all came together perfectly. Now, in the US, it was a bit of a different story, but the result was the same: big gains. This time it was led by financials and tech and even healthcare, which is usually just a steady, stable sector, showed some real strength. And again, you can draw a straight line from the week's headlines to these winners. The Fed's rate cut is great news for banks. That huge NVIDIA Intel deal just poured gasoline on the AI fire in the tech sector. And with all the action,
Healthcare provided that nice, stable foundation. Okay, so what's the big takeaway from all this? Is the September curse broken for good, or was this just a one-time thing? Let's connect the dots and see what might be coming next. I absolutely love this quote because it just nails the lesson from this week. Think about it this way. Seasonal patterns like the September effect are the long-term climate. They tell you what it's usually like. But the breaking news, the Fed cut, the NVIDIA deal, that's the daily weather. And sometimes the weather is a Category 5 hurricane that completely ignores what the climate is supposed to be. Now, speaking of the climate, it's about to change because right after the historical gloom of September comes October, a month that's known for bouncing back. In India, the Nifty has gained an average of 3% in October. And in the US, the S&P 500 usually gets a nice little lift too. And that brings us to the big question on everyone's mind. This week, the weather, the breaking news, won hands down. But as we head into October, a month with a historically positive climate, is this momentum going to keep pushing things up, or will those underlying seasonal patterns finally take back control? That is the billion-dollar question now.